The massive crystal displays in the Galactic Council chamber flickered with images of the newest discovered spacefaring species. The gathered ambassadors from 30 different civilizations leaned forward in their ornate chairs, studying the readings with growing amusement. Ambassador Reed of the Arcturus Empire broke the silence first. His scaled face twisted into what passed for a smile among his kind. Are these readings correct? Their largest ship is only 300 meters in length. The Council's chief scientist, a tall being with silvery skin, nodded. Correct, Ambassador. The human fleet consists of merely 50 ships, with their flagship being the largest at 300 meters. Laughter echoed through the chamber. Even the usually stoic representatives of the Silicon Collective vibrated in their version of amusement. By galactic standards, where the smallest military vessels stretched at least a kilometer in length, the human ships seemed like toys. Perhaps they're using these for scouting, suggested one of the younger ambassadors. Their real fleet must be hidden somewhere. No, the chief scientist replied. Our deep space scans are conclusive. This is their entire military fleet. More laughter followed. Ambassador Reed stood up, his ceremonial robes shimmering under the chamber's lights. Well, we should proceed with the formal first contact. Though I must say, it feels like welcoming children to the adult table. Only Council Elder Gray remained quiet, his ancient eyes studying the scans with unusual intensity. Something about the energy readings from those small ships bothered him, but he couldn't quite place what. 3 days later, the first contact ceremony began in neutral space. The Council sent their grandest ship, the Star Witness, a 15-kilometer-long vessel that shone like a small sun. Ambassador Reed stood at its command deck, watching as the human delegation approached. The human ship, HMS Thunder, appeared tiny against the backdrop of space. Its dark blue hull absorbed nearby starlight, making it look even smaller than it was. Ambassador Reed couldn't help but smirk as it came to a stop. "Look at that primitive design," he whispered to his aide. "No proper gravitational stabilizers, no quantum field generators that I can see. How did they even make it this far?" The communication channel opened, and Admiral James Walker's image appeared on the main screen. The human commander wore a simple dark uniform with minimal decorations. His expression remained neutral despite the barely concealed contempt in Ambassador Reed's greeting. "Welcome, Admiral Walker," Reed said, his voice dripping with condescension. "We must say, we were surprised by your fleet's specifications. Most species don't attempt interstellar travel until they can build proper warships." Walker's face remained impassive. "Thank you for the welcome, Ambassador Reed. We find that size isn't everything. Efficiency and innovation often matter more." Reed waved his hand dismissively. Yes, of course. But surely you understand that to be taken seriously in galactic matters, one must demonstrate proper military capability. Your entire fleet could fit in our ship's auxiliary hangar. Several officers on Reed's bridge chuckled. Walker simply nodded. "We're aware of the size difference, Ambassador. However, we've found that bigger isn't always better. Humanity has always focused on doing more with less." "How diplomatic of you," Reed replied. "Well, we'll proceed with the formal protocols. Though I must warn you, the Galactic Council only grants full membership to species that can defend their interests. With your limited capabilities, you might want to consider accepting protectorate status under a stronger power. The Arcturus Empire would be willing to discuss such an arrangement." For the first time, a slight smile appeared on Walker's face. "That's very generous, Ambassador. However, we prefer to maintain our independence. You might find that humanity's capabilities exceed your expectations." "I doubt that very much," Reed muttered under his breath before raising his voice again. "Very well. Let's proceed with the ceremonies, small as they may be." As the formalities began, Council Elder Gray, watching from his private chamber aboard the Star Witness, noticed something odd. The energy readings from the HMS Thunder kept fluctuating in patterns he'd never seen before. Perhaps, he thought, There was more to these humans than met the eye. Walker maintained his composed expression throughout the ceremony, but inside, he couldn't help feeling a bit of satisfaction. Let them underestimate humanity's tiny fleet. They'd learn soon enough why quality could triumph over quantity, and why humanity's approach to space warfare would change everything they thought they knew about combat among the stars. 10 years before first contact, the brightest minds on Earth gathered in the Global Space Development Center. The massive underground facility in Switzerland housed the future of human space exploration, though few knew its true importance. Dr. Robert Miller stood before the World Council, his hand steady despite the weight of his presentation. On the screen behind him, the failed designs of massive warships flickered past, each one marked as inefficient or resource-heavy. "We've been thinking about space wrong," he said, pointing to the latest failed prototype. "Every simulation shows the same thing. Bigger ships need more resources, more crew, and more time to build. We'll never catch up to advanced aliens that way." General Thompson, who had pushed for building huge warships, frowned. "Then what do you suggest, Doctor? We can't defend Earth with shuttles." Miller smiled and pressed a button. A new design appeared, the blueprint for what would become the HMS Thunder. The ship looked small, almost delicate compared to the previous designs. "Ladies and gentlemen," Miller said, "I present Project WASP. Why build giants when we can build smarter?" The room filled with murmurs as Miller explained. His team had discovered a way to compress quantum energy into spaces smaller than thought possible. They called it the density drive, an engine that could fit the power of a small sun into a space no bigger than a car. "Traditional physics says this shouldn't work," Miller continued, "but we found a loophole. The same way a wasp can lift many times its body weight, our ships can generate power far beyond their size." The project moved forward immediately. Within 5 years, the first test ship proved Miller's theories correct. The HMS Thunder's first trial run shocked even its designers. The small ship outperformed every expectation. Captain Thomas Miller, Dr. Miller's brother, stood on Thunder's bridge during that first test. He watched in amazement as his ship's density drive activated. The power readings broke every scale they had. "This is impossible," his engineer whispered, staring at the numbers. "We're generating more power than ships 20 times our size." But the density drive was just the beginning. The small size of human ships allowed for perfect AI integration, something that proved impossible in larger vessels where signal lag became a problem. Each human ship became a perfect blend of human judgment and machine precision. The HMS Thunder's AI, simply named Adam, could process combat data faster than any living crew. During battle simulations, it could target weak points, adjust shields, and maneuver the ship all within microseconds. The smaller the ship, the faster the AI can react, Dr. Miller explained to the World Council in a follow-up meeting. "Our ships might look tiny, but they think faster than anything else in space." Other breakthroughs followed. The compact size allowed for perfect shield harmonics, energy fields that could deflect impacts from much larger weapons. The concentrated power systems meant each ship could carry weapons far stronger than their size suggested. When the first alien signals were detected, humanity wasn't afraid. They had built something new, something different. While other species focused on intimidation through size, humans had chosen efficiency through innovation. Admiral Walker remembered standing in the shipyard, looking up at the completed HMS Thunder. A visiting politician had complained about its size, saying it looked weak. "That's exactly what we want them to think," Walker had replied. "Every advantage in war comes from surprise. Our ships look small because we understand something others don't. It's not the size of the vessel that matters. It's the technology inside it." Now, as he sat in his command chair after the first contact ceremony, Walker thought about humanity's journey. The aliens had laughed at their tiny fleet, just as expected. They didn't understand that they were looking at the most advanced ships in the galaxy. The HMS Thunder's AI hummed quietly in the background, its quantum processors running millions of calculations per second. In the engine room, the density drive pulsed with enough power to match 10 alien dreadnoughts. "Let them laugh," Walker muttered, watching the massive alien ships drift past his viewport. "They'll learn soon enough why humanity chose quality over quantity." His first officer nodded in agreement. Sometimes, the best surprises came in small packages, and humanity's ships were about to become the biggest surprise the galaxy had ever seen. 2 months after first contact, Admiral Walker stood before a holographic display showing the borders of human space. Red dots marked the locations of recent accidents involving Arcturus Empire ships. There were 12 dots now, all too perfectly placed to be coincidence. "Another mining ship damaged, sir," First Officer Mason reported, adding a 13th red dot to the display. The Arcturians claimed their patrol ship was conducting standard maneuvers when it accidentally scraped our vessel. Walker's jaw tightened. The Arcturus Empire had been testing human patience since the first contact ceremony. Their massive ships regularly strayed into human territory, always with the same excuse. They couldn't be expected to watch out for such tiny vessels. "How bad is the damage?" Walker asked, though he already knew the pattern. "Just enough to slow down operations, not enough to justify military response," Mason replied. "They're being careful about that." The door slid open, and a young lieutenant rushed in. "Admiral, urgent message from Colony 7. 3 Arcturian warships are conducting exercises just outside the colony shipping lanes." Walker nodded slowly. The Arcturians were following their usual playbook: intimidate the weaker species until they accepted protection. Their massive ships, each one nearly 5 kilometers long, made quite an impression against the backdrop of space. "Send the usual diplomatic protest," Walker ordered, "and get me a secure line to Earth Command." Hours later, Walker sat in a conference with the World Council. The council members looked worried as they reviewed the incident reports. "The Galactic Council is useless," General Thompson growled. "Every time we file a complaint, they dismiss it. According to them, we're too new to understand standard galactic practices. The Arcturians are pushing for us to accept protectorate status," another council member added. "They claim it's for our own safety, given our limited defensive capabilities." Walker allowed himself a small smile. "They still think our ships are primitive. Their scans can't penetrate our quantum shielding. They have no idea what we're capable of." "Should we show them?" Thompson asked. "A demonstration of our true capabilities might end this harassment." Walker shook his head. "Not yet. The moment we reveal our technology, every major power will want it. Let them think we're harmless for now." Back on the HMS Thunder, Walker watched the latest sensor feeds. The Arcturian ships near Colony 7 were putting on quite a show, their massive engines lighting up space as they conducted their exercises. "They're getting bolder, sir," Mason observed. "These exercises are closer than ever to our shipping lanes." "Yes," Walker agreed. "They're trying to provoke a response. They want us to either submit or give them an excuse for military action." The ship's AI, Adam, spoke through the bridge speakers. "Admiral, I've analyzed their flight patterns. They're systematically mapping our defensive capabilities. I estimate they'll have enough data for military action within 3 weeks." Walker nodded. The Arcturians were following their historical pattern. They'd done this before with other species, harassed them until they either accepted protection or fought back with inferior technology and lost. "Sir," Mason said quietly, "the crew is getting angry, watching those oversized bullies strut around our space, acting like they own it." "I know," Walker replied, "but patience is our ally here. Let them think their size makes them invincible. Pride comes before the fall." A new alert flashed on the main screen. Another accident had occurred, this time involving a passenger transport. The Arcturian ship had come so close that the transport's civilian passengers had panicked. Walker's expression hardened. The Arcturians were expanding their harassment to civilian targets now. Soon, they would force his hand. "Send a message to Earth Command," he ordered. "Tell them to prepare the fleet. Not for deployment yet, but I want every ship ready." As Mason sent the message, Walker watched the massive Arcturian ships on his display. They looked so confident, so certain of their superiority. They had no idea they were playing exactly into humanity's hands. "Let them keep underestimating us," Walker murmured. "Their overconfidence will be their downfall." The HMS Thunder's density drive hummed quietly, its true power hidden behind layers of quantum shielding. Soon, very soon, the galaxy would learn why humanity had chosen to build small ships. And the lesson would be one they'd never forget. The attack came without warning. 3 massive Arcturian warships dropped out of hyperspace near Mining Colony Delta, their weapons already charged. The colony's sensors barely had time to register the threat before the first shots were fired. "This is Commander Voss of the Arcturus Empire." A voice boomed across all frequencies. "Your mining operation violates our sovereign interests. Surrender the facility, or we will take it by force." The colony's administrator, John Parker, stared at his screen in disbelief. They had all necessary permits from the Galactic Council. This was a clear act of aggression. "Commander Voss," Parker replied, trying to keep his voice steady, "we have legal rights to operate here. Please check with the Galactic Council." The first blast cut through the colony's outer storage facilities. Though no one was killed, the message was clear. The Arcturians weren't here to talk. On the HMS Thunder, Admiral Walker received the distress call immediately. He was in the middle of a heated discussion with the Galactic Council when the attack began. "This is an outrage." Ambassador Reed's massive form dominated the communication screen. The humans clearly provoked this response by operating in disputed territory. Walker's voice remained calm, though his eyes hardened. "There is no disputed territory, Ambassador. We have all proper documentation. Your empire is conducting an illegal attack on our colony." "Nonsense," Reed scoffed. "If your species cannot defend its claims, perhaps it's time to accept reality. The Arcturus Empire would be happy to protect your interests." The council members shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. They had seen this before, a powerful empire absorbing a weaker species. It was an unofficial but common practice. Walker stood up straight. "We will defend our territory, Ambassador." Laughter erupted from the council chamber. Reed's scaled face twisted in amusement. "With what? Your toy ships?" "Commander Voss commands 3 Titan-class warships. Each one is 16 kilometers long. What will you send against that?" "Your entire fleet wouldn't equal one of his ships." Walker's reply was simple. "We'll send 3 ships." The laughter grew louder. Even the council elder Gray looked concerned. "Admiral Walker," he said gently, "please be reasonable. You'll sacrifice brave crews for nothing." Walker ended the transmission without further comment. He turned to First Officer Mason. "Deploy the Thunder, the Lightning, and the Storm. Set course for Mining Colony Delta." "Sir," Mason said with a slight smile, "they really have no idea, do they?" "No," Walker replied, settling into his command chair. "They don't." The 3 human ships moved into position, their small forms barely visible against the backdrop of space. On his massive flagship, Commander Voss actually had to zoom in his display to see them. "This is their response." Voss laughed, showing the image to his bridge crew. 3 ships so small they look like escape pods. The humans are either brave or insane. His second-in-command zoomed the image further. "Sir, should we even waste energy on our main weapons? Our point defense systems could handle this." Voss stroked his scaled chin. "No, let's give them a proper demonstration. Power up the main cannons. Let's show these humans what real warships can do." On the Thunder, Walker watched the Arcturian ships charge their weapons. Their massive energy signatures lit up the sensor displays like small suns. "They're powering everything up," Mason reported. Looks like they want to put on a show. Walker nodded. Let them, Adam, begin combat preparations. Disengage power limiters on the density drive. Bring all quantum systems to full capacity. HFY's voice was calm. Power limiters disengage. True capability now at 100%. The lightning and storm report ready as well. Voss's voice boomed across the comm channel one last time. This is your final warning. Withdraw your pathetic fleet or be destroyed. We will show mercy if you retreat now. Walker smiled for the first time that day. This is Admiral Walker of the HMS Thunder. We will not withdraw. In fact, Commander Voss, we're about to teach you why humanity builds small ships. The combat that would follow would change galactic history forever. But in that moment, as the tiny human ships faced the massive Arcturian warships, only Walker and his crew knew what was about to happen. All ships, Walker commanded, battle formations. Let's show them what humanity can do. Commander Voss watched with amusement as the three tiny human ships moved into attack formation. Their formation looked perfect, he had to admit, but it was like watching children playing at war. Fire when ready, he ordered casually. Try not to destroy them too quick. His words cut off as the impossible happened. The human ships vanished from his main view screen. Find them, he roared. How did they? The HMS Thunder appeared directly above his flagship, seeming to materialize from nowhere. The lightning and storm emerged simultaneously, one beneath and one behind his massive vessel. Quantum jump complete, Adam announced on the Thunder's bridge. All systems at maximum. Target locked. Walker's voice was calm. Show them what a tiny ship can do. The Thunder's density drive pulsed, releasing energy that had been compressed into impossibly small spaces. A beam of pure quantum energy erupted from the ship, cutting through the Arcturian flagship's shields like they weren't there. Impossible, Voss screamed as his shield readouts collapsed. Their weapons can't be that strong. They're too small. The lightning and storm struck next. Their synchronized attack sliced through the flagship's weapon systems with surgical precision. The AI-guided weapons found every weakness, every vulnerable point. Sir, Mason reported, the other two Arcturian ships are moving to attack. Execute Pattern Delta, Walker ordered. Show them our maneuverability. What followed looked more like a dance than a battle. The three human ships moved in ways that defied physics, their density drives allowing them to change direction instantly. The massive Arcturian ships couldn't track them, their targeting systems designed for large, slow-moving vessels. How? Voss demanded as another blast rocked his ship. Nothing that small should have that much power. On the Galactic Council observation feeds, the assembled ambassadors watched in stunned silence. The human ships darted between the Arcturian vessels like wasps attacking bears, each strike precisely calculated by their integrated AIs. Their power readings, Council Elder Grey whispered. They're generating more energy than should be possible in ships that size. Ambassador Reed couldn't speak. His mighty empire's warships, the terror of the galaxy, were being systematically taken apart by vessels they had mocked as toys. The Thunder spun in a tight arc, avoiding a desperate blast from one of the Arcturian ships. Its quantum weapons fired again, targeting the enemy's engines with perfect accuracy. Another hit, sir, Mason reported. Their flagship's weapons are completely disabled. The other two ships have lost engine power. Walker opened a channel. Commander Voss, this is Admiral Walker. Your ships are disabled. Do you wish to continue this demonstration? Voss's voice shook as he responded. How? What are you? We're humans, Walker replied simply. We just decided to build smarter, not bigger. Your shields were designed to stop high-energy impacts. They never encountered concentrated quantum beams. Your targeting systems expect large ships, so our size actually makes us harder to hit. And your eyes are too spread out in those massive ships to react quickly enough. The battle had lasted less than 10 minutes. 3 of the Empire's mightiest warships floated powerless in space, disabled by ships a fraction of their size. "We accept your surrender," Walker continued. "The Galactic Council can witness that we acted only in defense and used minimal force necessary." On the council feeds, Ambassador Reed had collapsed into his chair. The mighty Arcturus Empire's reputation for invincibility had just been shattered by 3 tiny ships. Walker turned to his crew. "Send medical assistance to their ships, and inform Earth Command that the situation is resolved." "Sir," Mason said, checking his readings, "we didn't even need to use full power. The density drives are still at 60% capacity." Walker nodded. "Let's keep that detail to ourselves for now. The galaxy has learned enough about human capabilities for one day." As the human ships began rescue operations, the news was already spreading across the galaxy. The species everyone had mocked for their small fleet had just demonstrated power that defied understanding. The era of measuring strength by size was over. Humanity's tiny fleet had just changed galactic warfare forever. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours of the battle, every major species had seen the recordings. The images of 3 tiny human ships defeating the Arcturus Empire's finest became the most watched footage in galactic history. In the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, Ambassador Reed stood before his peers, his proud scales now a dull gray from stress. The room that had once echoed with laughter at humanity's fleet now sat in stunned silence. "The Arcturus Empire," Reed said, his voice hollow, "formally apologizes for our actions against human territory. We were wrong to judge their capabilities by size alone." Walker sat in the audience, keeping his expression neutral. Beside him, Council Elder Gray leaned over to whisper, "You knew all along they would underestimate you, didn't you?" "The best advantage is the one your opponent gives you freely," Walker replied quietly. The council chamber's main display showed technical readouts from the battle. The energy signatures from the human ships had been unlike anything ever recorded. Scientists from a dozen species were already arguing about how such small vessels could generate such power. "The human density drive technology," one scientific advisor announced, "appears to break several laws of physics as we understood them. Their ships don't just match our largest vessels in power, they exceed them." A trade representative from the Silicon Collective stepped forward. "The human delegation has received over 200 requests for technology sharing agreements in the past 6 hours." Walker stood up to address the council. The room fell silent immediately. No one laughed at humanity's representative now. "Humanity is happy to begin technology-sharing discussions," he said. "Under proper agreements, of course. But first, we need to address the outstanding issues of territorial rights and species equality in the galaxy." Reed nodded quickly. "The Empire withdraws all claims to disputed territories. We recognize full human sovereignty over their space." Other representatives hurried to voice their agreement. The same species that had dismissed humanity weeks ago now rushed to establish friendly relations. In a private chamber after the session, Walker met with the Council's military committee. The alien admirals and generals who had once mocked his fleet now leaned forward eagerly as he spoke. "The key was thinking differently," Walker explained. "Everyone assumed bigger meant better. We asked why. In space, with the right technology, size can be a disadvantage. But the power requirements," one alien admiral began, "were solved by thinking small," Walker finished. "Our ship's AIs can react faster because signals have less distance to travel. Our quantum weapons work better because the energy is more concentrated. Sometimes the smallest package carries the biggest punch." Back on Earth, the World Council received message after message from alien governments seeking diplomatic relations. The same species that had ignored humanity now offered trade deals, cultural exchanges, and military alliances. "They're afraid of us now," General Thompson observed during an emergency meeting. "No," Walker corrected him. "They respect us. There's a difference. Fear leads to hatred. Respect leads to cooperation." The general nodded at the observation screens showing alien news broadcasts. Every channel showed the same images, the tiny human ships dancing between the massive Arcturian vessels, proving that size truly didn't matter. "What happens now?" someone asked. Walker smiled. "Now we help build a better galaxy. One where species aren't judged by the size of their ships or the age of their civilizations, but by their innovations and actions." Outside the council chamber, Ambassador Reed approached Walker privately. The once proud Arcturian looked humbled. "We were fools," Reed admitted. "We thought we knew everything about space warfare. Your people proved us wrong in the most elegant way possible." Walker offered his hand in the human gesture of peace. "The best lessons are often the hardest to learn, Ambassador, but they're also the ones we remember longest." As Walker prepared to return to his ship, he received one final message. The Galactic Council had unanimously voted to establish a new committee on innovative warfare technology. They wanted him to chair it. The galaxy was changing, and humanity's tiny fleet had been the catalyst that started it all. 5 years after the Battle of Mining Colony Delta, the Galactic Center buzzed with activity. Ships of all sizes now filled the space lanes, some massive like traditional designs, others small and sleek following human principles. The galaxy had learned that there was no single right way to build a spaceship. Admiral Walker, now serving as the head of the Galactic Innovation Council, stood at the main window of the observation deck. Below him, a group of alien students gathered around the preserved HFY Thunder, now the centerpiece of the Galactic Museum of Innovation. "Admiral," a young voice called. Walker turned to see a junior diplomat from the Arcturus Empire, one of their new generation who had embraced change. "Yes, young one," Walker replied, noting how the Arcturian scales shimmered with curiosity rather than pride. "I've studied the records of the battle many times," the diplomat said, "but there's one thing I still don't understand. Why did humans choose to build such small ships in the first place? Surely you could have built larger ones if you wanted to." Walker smiled. This was a question he'd heard many times over the years. He gestured to the window, where ships of various species flew past. "Look out there," he said. "What do you see?" The young diplomat watched the traffic. Ships, all kinds, some big, some small. "Exactly," Walker nodded. 5 years ago, every military ship looked the same, massive, imposing, and inefficient. Now look at the variety. That's progress." He continued, "Humans chose to build small ships because we asked questions others didn't. Why waste resources building huge vessels when smaller ones could do the job better? Why create targets so big they couldn't miss when we could build ships so small they couldn't hit?" The observation deck's display showed scenes from recent history, human density drive technology being shared with peaceful species, new hybrid designs combining different architectural philosophies, and the latest generation of ships that focused on efficiency over size. The Arcturus Empire's ships weren't wrong, Walker explained. They were just one answer to the question of space travel. Humanity found another answer. Now the galaxy has many answers, and we're all stronger for it. Dr. Miller, the creator of the density drive, walked in during this conversation. H had whitened his hair, but his eyes still sparkled with innovation. "You know what the real breakthrough was?" Miller asked the young diplomat. "It wasn't the technology. It was the willingness to question everything we thought we knew about space warfare." The diplomat nodded thoughtfully. "My teachers say that humanity's greatest contribution wasn't the density drive or quantum weapons. It was showing us that innovation comes from thinking differently." "Your teachers are wise," Walker smiled. "Look at the ships now. Every species has added their own ideas. The Silicon Collective's crystal matrix computers, your people's gravity manipulation technology, humanity's density drives, all working together in new ways." Outside, a new ship class passed by, a joint design between humans and Arcturians. It combined the best of both philosophies, efficient size with powerful capabilities. "That's the real victory," Miller said. "Not that we proved our ships were better, but that we showed the galaxy there's always room for new ideas." The young diplomat looked at the HNS Thunder in the museum below. They say some species still laugh when they first see human ships, until they learn the history. Let them laugh, Walker replied. The galaxy's a big place. There's room for all kinds of approaches. The key is to keep questioning, keep innovating, keep thinking differently. As the three of them watched the space traffic, a message arrived. A new species had been discovered at the galaxy's edge. Their ships were unlike anything seen before, neither large nor small, but different in a whole new way. Shall we send a delegation? The young diplomat asked eagerly. Walker smiled. Yes, but this time, nobody will judge them by the size of their ships. That's the real lesson humanity taught the galaxy. As the sun set on another day in the galactic center, ships of all sizes and designs flew past the window. Each one was a testament to a simple truth. In the vast expanse of space, it wasn't the size of your ship that mattered, but the innovation behind it. The galaxy had learned its lesson well, and the future was brighter for it.